The pure joy of picking strawberries on a Victorian farm. Before the sun has cleared the hawthorn hedges, the air in the Kentish field is already perfumed. It smells almost too sweet, to be honest. A smell of warm sugar, of bruised leaves, of the slow ferment of overripe fruit that fell in the night and was lost to the slugs. The ground is soaked in dew. The straw beneath the plants is cold and damp. And kneeling between the rows, a woman who has not yet eaten breakfast presses her thumb gently against the shoulder of a strawberry, testing it for ripeness before she breaks it from the stalk with a small practiced twist of the wrist. It is 4:30 in the morning. She has another 12 hours of this ahead of her. And along 100 miles of country lane, in carts, in canvas baskets, in the iron carriages of the new railways, the harvest she is gathering will be on the breakfast tables of London before the bells of St. Paul strike noon. Welcome back to The Forgotten Harvest, your almanac of rural lives. In the next quarter of an hour, you and I are going to walk through one of the most quietly extraordinary stories in the English countryside: the rise of the Victorian strawberry and the forgotten hands that picked it. We will meet the gardener who first put the modern strawberry on a porcelain plate. We will follow the women who walked 30 miles a day with 50 pounds of fruit balanced on their heads. We will sit at a strawberry feast attended by half of Deptford in the 1840s. And we will end where every harvest must end, with what was lost. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel and ring the small bell beside it, and leave a comment telling me which county or country you are listening to this evening. I love to read everyone. Now then, settle in, the fields are waiting. To understand the joy of picking a strawberry on a Victorian farm, you must first understand that the strawberry, as you know it today, did not truly exist before the 19th century. The wild woodland berry, the small bright phrase of the medieval forest, was no bigger than the nail of your little finger. It was scented, it was prized, but it was so fragile that it scarcely travelled beyond the garden in which it grew. Then, on a quiet morning in early July, in the year 1806, a market gardener from Isleworth, just west of London, walked into the rooms of the Royal Horticultural Society carrying a small wooden tray. His name was Michael Keynes. The fruits on his tray were larger, sweeter, and a richer crimson than anything the gentleman of the society had ever tasted. He had crossed 2 American species in his garden almost by accident and produced what he called Keynes Imperial. 15 years later, he raised an even finer variety, Keynes's Seedling, and turned over much of his 60 acres in West London to its cultivation. He died a wealthy man, and from his quiet patch of earth, the modern garden strawberry was born. What Keynes had begun, others continued. There was Thomas Andrew Knight, a Herefordshire gentleman and president of the Horticultural Society, who in 1817 raised over 400 strawberry seedlings from careful crossings, distributing the runners to anyone who asked. And there was Joseph Myatt, born in 1770 in the Staffordshire village of Mare, who in the 1820s moved his family south to Manor Farm at Deptford, just outside London, and turned its quiet acres into the most famous strawberry nursery in England. From Myatt's hands came the variety called British Queen, named in honour of the young Queen Victoria in 1840. It was the strawberry that half a century later Thomas Hardy would place between the fingers of his Tess of the d'Urbervilles to be eaten in shamed silence beneath the trees. By the 1850s, the British Queen ruled almost every market stall in the south of England. But none of these patient breedings, these patriotic names, these silver medals would have meant a thing without the people who knelt in the rows. And here we come to the labour itself. Picture, if you can, a strawberry field in Hampshire or in Kent, or on the soft slopes of Worcestershire in the high week of June. The day begins long before dawn, because strawberries must be gathered while they are still cool. They bruise in the heat of the hand, they sweat, they spoil. By 6 in the morning, every cart from Wandsworth to Lewisham must be loaded, harnessed, and rolling for the markets of London. So the pickers come in by lamplight, kneel on damp sacking laid between the rows, and work with the quick, steady rhythm of women who know that every hour of light is a few more pence in the apron pocket. They are paid by the pottle, by the pound, by the basket. A skilled picker working from 4 in the morning until 8 in the evening might earn 1.06 in a long day. A child, gleaning the smaller berries her mother has left behind, might bring home a few coppers. Whole families followed the soft fruit harvest from county to county, fruit picking in Worcestershire in the early summer, hop picking in Kent in the autumn, threshing on the Sussex farms in winter, moving with the seasons, sleeping in barns, in tents, in the lee of hedgerows. And then there were the strawberry women. They are almost forgotten now, but they were one of the great human spectacles of 19th century England. When the carts had carried the fruit as far as the edge of London, it was women, many of them Irish, many of them having walked all the way from Shropshire or Wales for the soft fruit season, who took up the burden for the final stage. They balanced flat, round baskets on their heads, baskets weighing as much as 50 pounds when stacked with strawberries, and they walked. They walked across the bridges, through the lamplit lanes, into the great roaring piazza of Covent Garden. They walked back again to the farms for another load, and another and another. In the course of a single summer's day, one of these women might cover 30 miles on foot under that sweet, swaying weight. A contemporary writer compared them rather grandly to an army of moving caryatids, to those carved Greek women who hold up the roofs of temples. There are no plaques to them in any English city. Their names are not written down. But they carried half the strawberries of London on their heads, and their feet wore the cobbles of Bow Street smooth. The transformation of this trade from a local luxury into a national passion was the work of two great Victorian forces. The first was the railway. Once the iron lines reached down into the strawberry counties in the 1840s and 50s, a fruit picked in a Hampshire field at dawn could be eaten in a Birmingham parlour by tea time. Whole new strawberry districts sprang up where the land had been good only for sheep. The Cheddar Valley in Somerset, the Tamar in Cornwall, the Hampshire Weald around Swanwick and Botley. The second force was the great rising middle class of Victorian England, hungry for the small luxuries that empire and industry had suddenly made affordable. Sugar, once worth its weight in silver, came pouring in cheaply from the Caribbean. Cream came down from the dairies on the morning train. And so the strawberry, which had been the food of dukes and bishops, became the centerpiece of every parsonage tea, every regimental sports day, every village fete. If you are still with me at this point, and I do hope you are, please consider subscribing if you have not already, and share this video with someone who loves the slow, forgotten corners of English history. It helps the channel more than you can know. There were rituals too. There were rituals that we have entirely forgotten. At Manor Farm in Deptford every July, Joseph Myatt threw what he called the Strawberry Feast. It went on for days. There were tents pitched in the orchard. There was bunting strung between the apple trees. There were fireworks at dusk above the chimneys of South London. And there were processions of carts driven slowly through the lanes. On each cart, a young girl dressed as Pomona or Demeter, or some other half-remembered goddess of the harvest, half buried in baskets of British queens. An invitation was prized like a season ticket to the opera. There were strawberry feasts in country houses too, long tables laid with linen on the lawn, glass dishes piled high, jugs of yellow Jersey cream, a fiddler in the orchard. There were strawberry songs, strawberry dances, strawberry clubs in the village public houses, where men paid a halfpenny a week through the winter to share a single great bowl of fruit and cream on the longest day of summer. None of this survives. Almost none of it. The strawberry feast at Deptford ended when Manor Farm was sold off, around 1870, for the brick villas and the railway sidings of an expanding London. The strawberry women vanished with the motor lorry. The pickers' songs faded as machinery and refrigeration changed the trade, and the British Queen herself, that stubborn Red Queen of Victorian summers, succumbed to a virus around the time of the First World War and was lost to cultivation forever. So when next you sit in a garden in late June, with a small white bowl of strawberries on the table beside you and the faint scent of bruised leaves rising from the kitchen, think for a moment of all the hands that brought that fruit to its place. Think of Michael Keynes kneeling in his Isleworth plot. Think of Joseph Myatt holding up a punnet of British queens for his portrait. Think of Thomas Hardy's Tess biting reluctantly into the offered berry. Think of the women of Shropshire walking through a London dawn with the weight of 50 pounds of summer balanced upon their crowns. The pure joy of picking a strawberry on a Victorian farm was never simple. It was joy laid upon labour, sweetness laid upon ache, beauty laid upon the unrecorded miles of working feet. And yet the joy was real. To kneel between the rows in the first cool light of morning, to find that one perfect fruit hidden under its leaf, to feel its warmth against your tongue. That pleasure has not changed in 200 years. It is perhaps the truest inheritance the Victorians left us, a small red gift easily missed from people who are otherwise almost forgotten. If this story has moved you, please share it with a friend and leave a comment telling me which forgotten craft or rural tradition you would like me to walk through next. A hop garden, a watercress bed, a goose green, a candle-lit shed of forced rhubarb. I read every suggestion. Until next time, my friends, keep listening to the whispers of the harvest.